The wooden ruler lay on the desk, silent. 18 inches of varnished oak, a quiet promise every child understood without a single word. You remember this, don't you? The creak of the wooden floors as Mrs. Henderson walked between the rows, the sharp tick of the wall clock, the smell of chalk dust that made the classroom feel alive, and that moment, the one when the teacher's eyes found you, your heart would skip. One look, and you knew you'd crossed the line. Welcome to Golden Days, USA. Pull up a chair. Let's go back to a time when discipline wasn't debated. It was felt in your knuckles, in your chest, in the quiet that fell over every classroom. The smell of chalk dust and pencil shavings, the metallic tick of the wall clock, the particular silence that fell over a room when Mrs. Henderson paused mid-sentence, her eyes settling on a student who'd been whispering. That silence had texture. It had weight. You could feel the whole class hold its breath. 23 children frozen in their wooden seats, eyes forward, hands flat on desks. Nobody wanted to be the one she was looking at. Nobody wanted to hear their name spoken in that certain tone, the one that meant you'd crossed the line. The radiator hissed in the corner. The flag hung motionless beside the door, and somewhere in the distance a door closed down the hallway, the sound carrying through the building the way sounds only carried in old schools with their high ceilings and plaster walls. And if you did cross the line, well, you knew what came next. The ruler wasn't cruelty, it wasn't rage. It was simply part of the order of things, like multiplication tables or pledging allegiance or waiting your turn to drink from the water fountain. Discipline was built into the rhythm of the school day, the same way bells marked the hours. It was structure. And somehow, looking back now, it felt strangely safe. Schools and parents understood something together in those years, something that didn't need explaining or contracts or meetings. Teachers were trusted, parents backed them up, and children moved through their days inside a framework of clear expectations. You knew where you stood. You knew what would happen if you stepped out of line, and most of the time that knowledge alone was enough. The paddle in the principal's office wasn't hidden away in shame. It hung on the wall or rested in the corner, visible to every student who walked through that door. Some had names carved into the wood. Old Betsy, the Board of Education, the attitude adjuster. You'd hear stories from older kids who got swatted, how many times, whether they cried. It was legendary, it was feared, and for most of us that fear alone kept us on the straight and narrow. Do you remember being sent to the principal's office? Not for a meeting, not for paperwork, but for discipline, real discipline. The walk down that hallway felt like it lasted an hour. Your shoes squeaking against the linoleum, your heart pounding in your ears, passing classroom after classroom, glimpsing other students through the little windows in the doors, students who weren't in trouble, students who were exactly where they were supposed to be. The secretary looked up from her typewriter as you came through the door. You could tell by her expression that she already knew. She always knew. Sit down. Mr. Patterson will see you in a moment. A moment. That wait was its own punishment. You'd sit on that hard wooden bench, legs dangling, staring at the clock, listening to muffled voices through the frosted glass, watching other students come and go with hall passes and attendance slips, normal errands, normal days. And there you sat, waiting for something that felt enormous. And then the door opened. The principal stood there, usually in a short-sleeved dress shirt and tie, his expression serious but not angry. He'd gesture you inside, close the door behind you with a soft click, and then he'd talk. That was the part nobody expected. Before anything else, there was a conversation. What did you do? Why did you do it? Did you understand why it was wrong? He wanted you to say it, out loud, to own it. And then came the paddle. Bend over and grab your ankles. 3 swats, maybe 5 if it was serious. The sting radiated through you like electricity, sharp, immediate, and completely impossible to ignore. Your eyes watered, your face flushed. You wanted to be anywhere else in the world. But here's the thing that surprises people now. Most of us didn't hate the principal afterward. We didn't fear him forever. We respected him because he was fair, because he was consistent, because when it was over, it was over. He'd put his hand on your shoulder, look you in the eye, and say something like, Now go back to class and do better. And somehow you believed him, and you did. The rulers were different. Those belonged to the teachers. A sharp crack across the knuckles for talking out of turn. A quick rap on the back of the hand for fidgeting during a lesson. Sometimes just the sound of it slapping against the teacher's palm was enough, a warning shot, a reminder. It was fast, it was startling, and it was remarkably effective. Nobody questioned it, not the students, not the parents, not the school board. If you came home and told your mother you got swatted with a ruler, she didn't pick up the phone to complain. She asked what you did to deserve it and then reminded you not to do it again. Maybe she'd shake her head and say, "Well, I hope you learned something." And if your father found out, there was a fair chance you'd get a second helping at home. There was something unified about it. Teachers, parents, neighbors, everyone held the same line. Everyone agreed. And children moved through the world knowing that the rules applied everywhere, not just in one place or with one person. That consistency, it meant something. What was it like to sit in those classrooms, really? What do you remember most? Maybe it was the way time moved slower, the careful cursive on the blackboard, the teacher's heels clicking as she walked between rows, checking your penmanship, pausing to correct your grip on the pencil, the way sunlight slanted through tall windows in the afternoon, casting long squares of gold across the wooden floors, the smell of paste jars and mimeograph ink, the squeak of chalk, the rustle of turning pages during silent reading, and yes, the ruler on the desk, the paddle in the office, the knowledge that consequences were real, but also the pride when you got it right, the spelling bee ribbons, the gold stars on your homework, the teacher's nod of approval that felt like winning the lottery, the moment your name was called for perfect attendance and you walked to the front of the room while everyone clapped. Discipline wasn't about cruelty, it was about caring enough to correct. It was about preparing you for a world that wouldn't always be gentle and giving you the tools to stand up straight when it got hard. What did your teacher keep on her desk? Was it a ruler, a yardstick, something else entirely? Did everyone agree with these methods? No. Were there moments that went too far? Certainly. Nothing from the past is perfect. But for many of us, those experiences shaped something deep, a sense of accountability, of self-control, of understanding that actions had weight. We learned to think before we acted. We learned to respect authority not blindly, but because authority had earned it through fairness and consistency. And we carried that forward into everything that came after. Somewhere along the way, things changed. The paddles came off the walls, the rulers disappeared from desks. Parent meetings replaced swift consequences. Policies were written, revised, debated, rewritten again. Some of that change was necessary, some of it was right. But something else shifted too, something harder to name. The clear lines blurred. The shared understanding between home and school grew quieter, and children began to move through a world with fewer boundaries, more negotiations, and less certainty about where they stood. It wasn't worse or better, it was just different. And those of us who remember the old ways sometimes find ourselves pausing, wondering what was lost in the transition. Not the sting of the paddle, but the structure, the consistency, the unified voice of a community that believed in raising children together. Why does any of this still matter? Because memory shapes who we are. And the way we were disciplined, the lessons we learned, the consequences we faced became part of the architecture of our character. Those rulers and paddles weren't just objects. They were symbols of a time when the world felt smaller, more certain, and more unified in its expectations. When teachers were trusted, when parents and schools spoke with one voice, when children knew exactly where the lines were drawn. We didn't always like it, but we understood it. And in that understanding, there was a kind of peace. If this brought back memories for you, the walk to the principal's office, the ruler on the desk, the lessons you still carry, we hope you'll like and subscribe to Golden Days USA for more stories like this. And tell us, did your school have a name for the paddle? We'd love to hear what you remember. Some things stay with you forever, not because they were easy, but because they mattered.